We start from telling our names.
Gilbert,
Marty,
Nelson,
Lockie,
Liz,
Zoran, Michael,
Serena,
Paula,
Manji,
Catherine,
Peter,
Ross,
Josh.
Dean.
and
I couldn't hear a word.
the word is not the thing.
yes.
Well, that's all you're going to get, the word. Give you a short burst, because she's got me out of the paddock again, but I should be in the paddock eating the long grass. She's dragged me out and put me in the harness. Well, as you know, I can't teach you anything, can't tell you anything. All I can do is point toward and ask you to look toward what's being pointed to and see for yourself. Because when you recognise what we're pointing to, you realise that nobody can ever teach you anything and nobody can ever tell you anything. Because it's the one essence, appearing, patterning, shaping, forming and expressing is everything that we point to. Now the way I put it, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not talking to any mind. I'm not talking to that body-mind entity you might believe yourself to be. I'm talking to that I am, that sense of presence that expresses through the mind as the thought I am. Just to this, nothing else. So that's what we point to. The one essence or intelligence entity or life or God or whatever concept or label you like to put on it. The concepts, labels, that's all they are labels. It's only the one essence which I call intelligence energy. I don't use the term God because I can get confused with that term, because everybody's got a different concept, all the different religions, different things got a different concept and idea about what this God is. But what it tells you in the Bible is just a word. It says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. That's all that God is, a word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. Isn't that so? We've got words for everything. Chair, table, space, winter, summer, high, low, all words. What is it without the word? Well, without a word, can you describe or separate or divide anything at all? You can't. But there is seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, experiencing, happening all the time. But we've learnt the word I. I see, I hear, I taste, I touch, I smell, I think, I experience. So what we've done is what they tell us in all the great texts not to do. We've separated the inseparable and describing the indescribable, instead of leaving everything as it is, just the one essence appearing, patterning, shaping and forming. And how many words were you born with? You're alive, you're being, you're existing. But can anyone remember your birth? People say they remember their birth. But how could you remember it if you didn't have any words to say I was born or when I was born? You couldn't. And you didn't learn any words till you were about 2.5 years of age, somewhere around that age, when the capacity of reasoning developed in you. And that capacity of reasoning is a very useful function that's going on in these body-mind patterns right now. And you learnt words from your parents. Parents fussing you around, you said your little Johnny or your little Jean, your little Billy. And you learnt the word I and me. I am little Billy or I am Jean. And that's the way you express yourself to people, I think. Realising that I am is just another concept, another label we put on it. Nisargadatta and others will tell you to stay with the I amness. And we think, or some of us think, that we've got to repeat that mantra, I am, I am, I am, and understand. It doesn't mean that at all. It means stay with that I am, which is the sense of presence. To describe yourself, you've got to say I am. And it's that awareness of being present right here and right now. That presence awareness. That is the I amness, and that's what he's pointing to. Stay with that sense of presence. The knowing that you are. Not what you think you are or believe yourself to be. Get locked up into the concepts, ideas, images and words again. You've done that long enough. It's the cause of all the psychological suffering that goes on with us. But the great mantra is, I am that. You hear that and you know that. Don't realise what it's saying, because innately you know that. Because you say, that's the chair I'm sitting in, that's the room I'm in, that's the space in the room, that's the tree, that's the flower, that's you, that's me. You already know that everything is already that, which we've discriminated with the word. We've learnt the labels and we divide it with the words and the label. But as that is all there is. Only that. And that's what they point to in Advaita. Sat, Chit and Anda, Nama Rupa. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, and Anda is loving to be or being. Nama Rupa, body, mind, name and form. They say Nama Rupa, body, mind is Maya. It's illusion. But the existence, is anyone who's not existing right now? You say, no, I'm existing. Of course you are. Anyone who is not conscious or aware, you've got to say, no, I'm aware, I'm conscious. And you're all happy to be, nobody wants to be dead right now. So there it is right before your very eyes and in your mouth or wherever you like to put it. I am that already. Instead of putting that, I am Bob the person, the entity, the individual that's had a bad trot, not doing too good and unhappy, miserable, fear. Put this conceptual image on it, on ourselves, and beat ourselves up with the word. It's totally unnecessary to recognise. And then you'll say, but what about this, that and that? I'm seeing this and seeing that. Well, I tell you that also, that this manifestation is a phenomenal manifestation. All these things are phenomenal. And the dictionary definition of phenomenon is that which appears to be. So we're all appearing to be so. And that appearance is seemingly real. But the appearance is all energy vibrating into different pattern shapes and forms. And the appearance is not the reality. It's only how it seems to be. And people say, well, I see this is so, and we believe it. But how many of us, and a lot of us have and will, have seen through it, but we still take it on board? Take the ocean. I say go back down to the ocean, get me a bucket of blue water out of the sea. You'd say, don't be an idiot, because you know the water's not blue. Yet doesn't it still appear to be blue? And don't you say, what a beautiful blue sea? You'll acknowledge it, but you know the truth about it. But instead of not knowing the truth about this appearance that's coming to the mind and concepts, you see them again and again and take them to be real. And you're trapped in it. The blue sky. Sky is space. Space is empty. There's space in this room. Where's the blueness? There's no blueness there. The water in a mirage. The snake in the rope. All these other analogies that they point out, pointing out that the appearance is not the reality. It's just what it seems to be. And this body mind appears to be real, appears to be solid. But am I this body? Well, don't I call it my body? Don't I say my car, my house, my this, my coat, my hat? You know damn well you're not the house, the car, the coat or the hat. But you take the body to be me, what I am. Investigate and see if it's so. And when you investigate it, as they'll tell you, that the false cannot stand up to investigation. And it can't. You see, look into something and test it out, and it'll fall apart under investigation. Well, have a look at this body. My body. What's this body made up of? When you investigate, you realise it's made up of elements. Air, earth, fire, water, space. Just the same as the elements around you. Appears to be different, more solid. Yes, but that's how it appears. Take the air out of your body. How long would you last without that element air? Take the fire, the body temperature, you'd hypothermia. Stop drinking water, you'd soon get kidney failure or whatever it is. Get off the earth if you can, get out of space. You realise that you can't possibly separate yourself from those elements. And those elements can be broken down to subatomic particles. And those particles into pure energy. So all this body is a vibrating pattern of energy. Vibrating now, and the words come out of its mouth, the breath happens, the heart's beating, hair and fingernail, the life essence, the pure intelligence energy, call it godliness if you like, is functioning it, and it's living and expressing through it, as it. And you are that which is expressing it, not the thing it expresses it. How did you come into existence? You'll say, I was born. But can anyone remember your birth? You had no words, you can't. And you didn't learn any words till you're about 2.5. So you realise that you've lived for the first couple of years of your life without the word. Wouldn't that point out to you that I'm prior to the word? You are prior to the mind or thought before the word. You were functioning without it. But then we picked up words and learnt words and taken the words and the conceptual images we put up on them to be real. So we formed a conceptual image, an image made up of concepts, ideas, and added to this I amness and formed the mental picture of what we believe ourselves to be. But what basically are you? Is there any of you who's not alive right now? You'll say, no, I'm aware, I'm alive. So wouldn't you realise if I'm life, I'm the life energy? You'd be able to say what Christ said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Not talking about himself, but talking about that sense of presence that's expressing and patterning through him as him. And that's the way, that's the truth, that's the life. And isn't that doing it to you right now? Acknowledge it. And it says, again, that acknowledge him in all thy ways, acknowledge that essence that you are, and he will direct thy path. You don't have to take on board, it'll direct you, it'll tell you what to do. You shall hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Whether you walk to the left, turn to the left or turn to the right. They call it the still small voice, the voice of intuition that intuits the inner teaching. It comes up and tells you what if you're open and listening to it. But we're not. We cover ourselves with concepts of, oh shit, this is no good, I don't like this, or he shouldn't have said that, or blah, blah, blah. Or what'll I do next? Conceptual, hidden with concepts. But this great saying is, know the truth. And the truth will set you free. Know it. See it and know it. Don't just think about it. Know it as real. And is there anybody who doesn't know right now? You know this, you know that, but know the truth. The truth is that there's only one essence that's patterning, appearing, expressing its shape as anything, and I am that. Thou art that. This is that. And we know that because you say, that's a chair, that's a carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower, that's the sky. You know everything is that, which we put different concepts on and divide it and discriminate with the word. And the word's not the real. Take the word water. Try and drink the word. Wash yourself with the word. Swim with the word. You can't. Take the word fire. Cook with the word fire. Heat yourself with it. Burn yourself with it. You can't. So what's this word I or me when you look at it? Is it this body? Is it this mind? You realise it's not the body or the mind. It's the life essence that's expressing and utilising and has formed that intelligence energy that form in all this manifestation, forms this body, this shape and form to express through. And it's expressing through it right now, naturally and effortlessly. And you are that. Don't forget it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. There are your ears, the reward. See. One. Yeah, that was beautiful. So now, we don't have questions from anyone who is with us online, but I'll keep the mic on Bob just in case we get lucky again. But we have a lot of welcoming messages, and people are happy to see and hear you. So yes, we can take it all from here. So this is about sharing what is our own take on understanding. If we have any questions, or if we would like to look at anything deeper, or perhaps something that really helps, a pointer that stands out and is that lighthouse throughout the day when, as Bob beautifully said, I loved it, we just covered it up with concepts. What am I gonna do next? Or what does it mean? What did they say? Or what am I gonna do? It's like, really, if you look into it, how much through the day the reality is reality. We don't even know what reality is, or whether it is or it isn't. But how much the experiencing is covered up with constant narrative and interpretation of that experiencing. What does it mean? Oh, what's your star sign? Oh, but I saw this one. Oh, I dreamt about that. What is, like, constantly chatting over what's happening? Oh, what's your take on that? Or what's your belief about that? Just everything is really covered up. And there's nothing wrong with concepts coming and going. Like Bob and thousands of others for thousands of years say, it's not about having no thoughts, because there's no one who has them or who not had them. Thoughts are just floating through the sky like clouds. They are just coming and going. It's about the freedom for those thoughts to just move through without that compulsion to relate and translate those thoughts, to own those thoughts, to defend them, all those thoughts and concepts. So it makes it really simple to just recognize what is happening, how in that present experiencing, how in that experiencing, everything is covered by that noise, the mind chatter. Because when this one is recognized, obviously the recognition comes from the beyond, from beyond the mind. There is that recognizing in that happening of the knowing, being, recognizing. There is a content, and that content then is not personal. It loses its sting. They're not my thoughts anymore. When the thoughts are passing through, they are thoughts passing through. If there is an idea that, oh, they are mine, then that idea is another thought. The me is another thought. So there is no need to attach to it, there is no need to do anything about it, because if there really is no self, and it's very easy to just check it out and see if you can find oneself. And if you do, well, wonderful. See who found it. Who is the one who found it? But you most probably won't find it, so that rests the case. So it is really about the relaxed recognition, because that recognition comes from detaching from all the noisy content. When you're completely associated with it, the possibility of recognition simply doesn't arise. It's just the whole stream of attention taken for the ride. But when the relaxation happens, then the possibility arises. And then there is the invitation to just see it for what it is and laugh, be light about it. Enjoy it, because there is nothing that needs to be done or changed or fixed. Nothing. It's just a pure perfection arising and playing and subsiding. And even if that pure perfection is sometimes uncomfortable, it is only because without it the comfort wouldn't be known, wouldn't be experienced. The comfort, discomfort, the pain, the pleasure, they're interdependent. They only exist because of their opposites. Everything that is experienced can only be experienced because the opposite is known. The one without the opposite, like space, the presence, cannot be experienced. See, the experience of space and no space is equally unexperienceable because they're not two. So, if anyone would like to start it and just take it further, because this is what makes this man the most happy, to actually hear and see the reflection of that very, very simple message completely digested and given back as a light that shines through you all. As he said, you are that. It's nobody who doesn't exist and is not aware of the existence. So there's no one superior or no one who can teach. It's just a sharing, describing that loveliness, that joy of being, when that is clear, when the suffering gets off the way. And if there is a suffering and you would like to look deeper into it, what causes it, how it comes about, yes, please, that's a form of investigation too. Just share it with us. Who would like to start? You start. Wonderful.
On the other day, I was watching these two people, younger people, sort of interact, and I think Gilbert was there as well, and watching them, and it was just a play on concepts, and they were having this discussion and getting to know each other, and everything was beautiful, and it went on for hours. I like cheese. Oh, me too. You know, it just went on. I'm the kind of person. If someone says this, I'm the kind of person that does this, and I see things this. And I'm watching this guy, and it was just absolute madness. Like, it was beautiful. They had a ball. It was funny, and it was like, but you sort of there was something being missed, and like the ground in which allows all that to happen is actually being missed, and then you're going into all these concepts as if they're so real, and it's just so funny that but that's all. And I had to put headphones and go to sleep after a while, but it was just fun, just watching how remembering that was I was playing that game for many years, and even though that was the fun part of the game, always inevitably leads to the other side.
Absolutely.
At some point, in some way, and and so like there's this freedom in even the fun. Like it's not just the suffering. It's like even the good. You can see the good stuff and see it for sort of what it is. But the good stuff's not really the good stuff. The real good stuff is that which sees those concepts play out.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd start off, and I'm just wrapped that Bob made a really energised little speech at the start, and I think everyone's really happy to be here with you, Bob.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that was so beautiful. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Peter.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, Bob. It's just fantastic to see the vital energy in you at the moment. It's just amazing, really, how you've made such a wonderful recovery. But it isn't you in the body that's making that recovery, is it? It's an expression of the totality of, this vital energy that we all are. That which enlivens me, enlivens you, enlivens all of us. Such a beautiful thing. Yeah, I love you, Bob. Thank you so much. And I love everyone here.
I feel so happy and inside so glad to see Bob there, so energetic and too many, And I was going to go there and hug again. She will be turning up. So,
What was that?
She wanted to give you another hug.
Being that, I've been playing around with, because it's the first step is logically recognising there's no argument for an individual self.
Can you speak it?
The first step for me anyway was recognising logically, because it's all mind, so logically there can't be a self, and it can't be independent, and it's separate, and there's something that's seeing it. And one thing with that was like I could cut off an arm, but I'm still myself. So how could I be the body? You know, if I don't have water, I'm not going to survive. If I don't have sunshine, if I don't have the earth, if I don't feed, if I don't have heat, all these things, I need to survive. So how can I be separate? And then, but there's still the idea of awareness. It seems like there's a point of view here that has a different view. And even that, like the idea of like a thumb touching a finger, it's still the same hand, so this has a different perspective. And so even logically, that's fine too. Like, how can you be separate? How can we be separate? But then it's a different thing experiencing that as a reality. And part of what I've been playing with is sensing into where, because this awareness is undeniable. I exist, I'm aware. It doesn't seem to have a boundary or an end or exclude anything. And so what I've been playing with is how can that be different to your awareness? How can it be any different? And so, and if you have an awareness and I have an awareness, then where do they meet? Where's the where's yours start and my mine finish? But experientially, that's what I've been playing with, like just trying to sense in. Okay, I've got this awareness, but where's it? Where does it meet yours?
It's not two.
Yeah, so it can't be two, but it's logical. Again, is different. Like logically, yes, obviously, but experiencing it, I think that's the key. So, but I'm playing with working as often as I can to actually sense into the feeling of that and being that.
Try not to be there and experience it. Try not to be the vital energy of life. Yeah, just I don't know. There it is. It's just so simple, isn't it? You know,
Simple, isn't it?
it's incredibly simple. Oh man, all that energy is spent on thinking about this and nutting it out. You just bang, all resting behind that. It's just everything going on right now. I don't know how to say that. I really don't. But I feel it.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Also, I think from my own experience, any kind of question that comes up like that, it's the mind, and the mind is
Speak up,
relative. The mind is always, any question that would come up is from the mind, which is relative. You know, through the investigation, you see how the mind operates, and so any question is relative to how, compared with something else. So, but without the questions, there's no boundaries. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I'm a bit more aware than you, though.
He's cheeky, that one.
And he's right too.
Yeah.
And there's the other way around, is that you have awareness and I have awareness. Awareness has you, it has me, it has everything.
And the experiencing is uninterrupted. It's, you can recognise that the experiencing is uninterrupted. Time doesn't really touch it. Time is a concept anyway. So when that's recognised, you see that an experience may appear to happen, but it doesn't stop the experiencing. The experiencing is that constant, and the experience is related to me. Usually, it's referred to, so it's referring to me, the self-image, which is a fiction. So anything that's knitted or described on this me image is a fiction as well, because you don't go from a fiction to the truth. And consciousness, what is consciousness? Seriously, what is it? Nobody's ever described or described what consciousness is. So, but it's there. What is it? Is it actually dividing? If you try to describe it, you have to divide it into parts and levels, and that's where the problem starts. so many times I hear people talking about levels of consciousness, and well, where are you measuring that from? There's no static point anywhere in the universe, and the self-centre is an imaginary static point. And if you have a look, it's just the stories, it's just images and memories, and they're totally impermanent. So, but the witnessing or the consciousness is uninterrupted, and we call that experiencing. You can't lose it, you can't buy it. It's already so. So it's already done. You know, the individual doesn't really exist, but yet here we are. We all seemingly separate individuals, but the thing we have in common is the consciousness or the awareness. What, you know, they're just labels for the same no thing. And seeking is really a dream.
That is me.
Seeking is a
Think
dream.
of seeking and come here.
Yeah.
Tired of reading.
What do we
and
think we're going to
watching.
get? Like Bob says, start. One of Bob's pointers is start from the fact that you are already that. That's like a slap in the face if you're believing to be a separate entity. Start from the fact that you are already that. And really hearing that message is like, okay. So you have to drop all of the stories of the progress, spiritual progress, the path. The path disappears, there's no path. Because a path is time and taking steps, is going in the direction of something in the future. What future? There's only now, which is the consciousness, which is the living energy.
Interesting thing about just looking at the word itself. You know, in the beginning was the word, as Bob mentioned. But look at the word consciousness. It's interesting in its formation. Con, with. The CO part is knowing. And this suggests there's quantities, very varying quantities. The experience is sometimes it's bright and clear, and there's energy. Sometimes it's all clouded over with thought, but it varies, doesn't it?
Well, the content of the consciousness is not separate from the consciousness, but the content of the consciousness has no independent existence. Like me, you can't find the me because it has no independent existence. But if you go looking for it, that's seemingly important, because otherwise the dream has you, the dream of being me and everything. But if you find that there's no me, and you actually investigate and keep investigating until you're absolutely certain there's no me, then how can you believe in it again? So how can psychological suffering happen if there's no me to attach it to? That's it, simple. But seemingly that information is not welcome everywhere. Sorry.
Thank you. I feel like listening to Bob and
Speak up.
listening to Bob, listening to you, and hearing him say, the same thing that we've all heard, multiple times, and hearing him say, know it, and be it. Really doesn't get any more simple than once you notice the pointing, or where the pointing is pointing to, once you notice that, consciousness or presence or sunglasses, sunglasses on your head that you forgot were there. Now, well, you already are it, but just know it and be it, and stop pretending to be a thought. But thanks for that, Bob, and thanks for everyone else's kind words as well. Yeah, it's very ordinary, like Gilbert says all the time. That's very ordinary.
Just stemming from what you've said before about the body, one of the things sometimes that I put it across is like if I fall dead now, hypothetically, if I fall dead right now on the floor, so all the internal organs are still intact. So I still have my eyeballs, my ears, my tongue, and so forth. But then I won't be able to see, hear, feel, touch, smell, and even think. So what's the difference between me being alive now and the hypothetical cadaver, which at some point is going to start to smell? Right? So if you just kind of ponder on that, to me, my answer to that is that invisible force that's somehow animating this body, it's making everything possible. Right? And then from there, then you start kind of appreciating it more and more, and it starts expanding in terms, then you start to see more and more, like, it's also responsible for you to be able to think, to be aware, and all that kind of stuff. And even the idea of me also arises from that thing as well. Yeah.
And it's enabling the cadaver to decay as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. Bob, you want to expand on it?
There's a good idea about consciousness in one of the texts I was reading. Describes it. Consciousness is existence, utterly aware that it exists, totally aware.
It's not necessarily a conceptual awareness. It's not like I am. Now there is a consciousness. If the I am stops, there is no consciousness, of course. It is that which Peter was saying, try not to be. Is the non-conceptual awareness of presence. The consciousness is the existence, aware that it is present. It doesn't have to say it. Like they say, I think I read some sort of a research material of someone who was trying to define the consciousness. I don't remember the name of the guy, but he took a bat, the flying mouse, flying fox, as an example. Is there anything that one could say feels like being it? They're having a sonar, they're having different way of processing, but is there any way to actually say that there is an existence, aware of the fact of its existing? So that was kind of like a workable definition. But awareness of existence, that's it. And that's actually what differentiates the corpse, which is still alive, is still life in it. Like as Catherine was saying, and Bob, I love the description when Bob says there is an algorithm which he doesn't use the word, but there is an integration process going on. That life essence is programmed with the body that is alive to just integrate, replace, renew, constantly connected with the environment, renew the forces and the sources. And then this integration happens. At some point that program is reversed, and that algorithm now goes towards the decay of the body. But what is it that reverses the software? What is it that one moment it gives the capacity to see, that consciousness, meaning awareness of existence, non-conceptual, and then suddenly that awareness of existence in the large scale disappear, and then the aliveness is still there. The maggots, the enzymes, the bacteria, all the microorganisms that are decomposing that body, they're very much alive.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hey.
Morning, everyone. When you were saying that brought to me a memory of getting lost in Tasmania on the way to a gig. And I was told by the hire car company not to take a certain road. I have to go this road, not go through the forest. Of course, I went through the forest. I ended up getting lost on my way to Oyster Bay. And the forest was so magnificent. And I was so stressed, I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop and I'm going to enjoy the forest, then I'm going to regroup and I'm going to get to the gig. And while I was walking in that small bit of the forest, I could see all these logs that were dying dead, that had been magnificent trees, and all these magnificent trees. And then I thought to myself, they're not dead. They're actually giving life to the forest. So when they die, they are feeding back into the system. They're not just dead independently and do not exist. So there's this almost this rhythm. There's life and then there's death, and we call it death. But probably because we have this industrialized colonization of our brains that is very materialistic, we think, oh, they don't exist anymore. But in fact, they do exist, but in a different vibration. But they're giving life, as you say, to this. I could just sense that these logs were actually lying down, giving life directly back into the soil and the land, and they were just as living as when there were trees giving us oxygen. So it was just really this amazing moment of going, they're not actually really dead. So, yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
That's the same. That's the same with all the opposites. Good and bad, pleasant and painful, happy, sad. Well, life and death is the same. Well, out of death more life comes, and out of life more death.
It's all about mushrooms, really.
All about mushrooms.
But I just from my encounter with Indigenous people, for example, this I met this elder from the Monero area up near Canberra, and he said in the Threadbow accident where, I don't know, 8 people died. Remember, there was a landslide in this Threadbow area 20 years ago or so. And he said after that, the great snowy owl reappeared, and it had been extinct. And he said for them, it's like this exchange with Mother Earth. Mother Earth gives back, but has to have a sacrifice. So that's the way he put it. I thought, oh, that's so interesting. Like, we freak out when someone dies, but actually they're giving back to the great consciousness so something else can come, birth, you know. And I thought, wow, it's a beautiful way to look at life and death.
Bob, did you want to say something, darling? No?
No, just that they're not separating, it's just keeping going different aspects.
Yeah, it is that thing of not separating, but becoming the cycle, you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that you know, we make no distinction. When you walk into the forest, you make no distinction between the dying trees and the live trees. They're all part of this magnificent thing called the forest or Mother Nature, of which are really quite patently a part. Yeah, it's a very beautiful thing, that, isn't it? No distinctions in truth. Finish yet? You groomed yourself to say something. In a minute. Well, just that it really is an absolute condition, isn't it? You know, you look, everything is energy, if you like. You look at energy. What is energy? Pure energy is just clearly what animates Bob, and everything else, but cannot be divided. You know, we don't know. We can't say what pure energy is. You know, or pure life. Can't say what life is, or what consciousness is, which is at the bottom of you know, the heap of everything. What's at the bottom? Consciousness, I bet. Or just this sense of the spacious awareness, being the, well, as they say in Buddhism, what is it? The basic space in which all phenomena arises. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Ross.
I just wanted to be a little bit pedantic and say that a lot of these subtle concepts come from the Sanskrit language. And Bob mentioned the Sat Chitananda. Another concept that's very prominent in there is the three guna of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So the tamas is what holds the form, and the tamas dissolves the form. So that's the operation of that. And the rajas is the energy that enlivens everything. Sattva is the being. But a beautiful thing about the Sanskrit language is often it starts with the word Om. And when the translation of Om is all this. So what a beautiful way to start. All this before any differentiation or... Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All is. Attention. Give a seat.
I think I might be more of a materialist at heart, because if I was to say anything, I can just say not void. After that, it's like consciousness. Any of these descriptions are just definitions arising, and they don't arise. So really, energy or activity or whatever, it's just the one thing after not void to me. And so, I haven't witnessed any kind of consciousness, awareness or anything. That those definitions don't pop up when the brain's off. And then also saying about the dead trees and the live trees just being the same thing, which is kind of how I see it. At that moment, I applied. There was an application in here to like the dead, repressed, dense kind of hang-ups. Blocks and stuff, and so if you see them as live, like the dead trees are live trees, they're the same energy, then it was like kindness then happened to the dead, the gripping of the harsh stuff inside. This because I'm vaguely autistic, there's a bit of a thing often here, like I'm not very compassionate, not very caring, those people weeping over that person, I don't really care, but I want them to be well, and I'll do everything I can when they're just sitting there weeping, but then there becomes this whole, oh gee, maybe I'm missing out on the compassionate side. But yeah, just seeing the dead there as live, kindness happened to the dead, and some of it got released. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I like the no void. Why
Yeah.
put so many other labels?
Yeah,
No
well,
void.
they just don't
Easy.
show the heads up,
Yeah.
brains off, like
Fantastic. Yeah.
What is this awareness, consciousness?
Awareness, consciousness,
No
life,
definitions
God.
arising.
Yeah, there's just so many words we put on it.
I might be missing something, but who cares?
Well,
The brain's
yeah.
off.
Who misses anything? There's no one to miss anything.
Separate the inseparable.
Separate, inseparable, and the description is never to describe. Anyway.
Divide the indivisible.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Mm-hmm. Descriptions never described anyway. But yes, different words resonate with different people. For some people, the consciousness, that kind of makes sense. But what you were saying, Ross, that the description of the content of consciousness, sometimes there is a sky and there is no clouds, and sometimes there are clouds, sometimes there is just a pouring rain, sometimes the clouds are just passing one by one, sometimes they're so attractive that you just follow that cloud and see how it dissolves. But who is following the cloud? The sky doesn't really do anything. So there is just an imagined self that is following. Like what Michael was saying, and I totally hear you when you say, yeah, logically I'm convinced. Absolutely. It makes total sense that the body is inseparable. Of course. I mean, the child would understand that they will disappear without the, even the impressions that, the interactions, the seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling is completely reliant. It's like really inseparable. But how about the feeling that there is still a location here, there is still a self that understands it logically? Who is that? Who is that self that actually is convinced and believes and understands logically? And for that, really, there is no answer other than just looking if there is anyone and finding no one, because they can't be found. When you look, you see it can't be found. And yet, there is a thought, or there is an idea, or there is a feeling of someone being there, and someone being convinced, and someone believing. It's almost as if you get the performer. Let's say someone is playing Julius Caesar, and then another one is playing Brutus, and then Julius Caesar, the act finishes, and Okay, I'm not Caesar anymore, fine. So, yeah, I believe this was just a role. That isn't really who I am. That role is not who I really am. I'm something else. But Brutus, you ugly bastard, how could you do it to me? Well, there is no Brutus. If I'm not Caesar, he's not Brutus. Nobody has done anything to anyone. But that's sort of a enchantment by the play in which I refuse to step out of the role because it's so, the costume fits so well. It is so attractive to actually completely identify and pretend to be something different that, oh, I don't know how to wake up from it now. I'm the consciousness pretending to be an actor, and I'm such good actor and such good at my role that I don't know how to wake up. Well, the truth is the actor can't. The character that the actor is playing can't wake up. Caesar doesn't exist, never did. Caesar can never wake up. This is waking up from the Caesar. But who is waking up? Well, the actor, okay, fine. Who is waking up from being an actor in the broader scheme of things? Well, okay, so there is a small self and there's a big self, and the big self is waking up from the small self. Well, who's waking up from the big self? So creating different sort of broader, this is the little personality, this is bigger. No, the urge to identify and self-define as anything is just an urge. It's the same urge like an urge to have the body safe and secure. It's the same urge as having a mate to appreciate you. It's just an urge. You're not the urge. Urge is something that comes and goes. It's not always there. So the urge to identify me, I am bigger self today, or a little bit smaller, or medium self, or I'm the total consciousness self type of a thing. If there is anyone who wants to be anything, no matter how big, well, who is it? Who is it? Anyone there who wants to be a whole space, or a whole life, or a whole... Who wants to be that? Because as long as there is someone who looks for identity, well, find that someone. Because really life goes on, and there is no need for any entity to be big, small, medium. There is no need for any entity to be convinced or not convinced or to act or play. It's just the happening, like no void and the happening. It's just the happening to no one, by no one. It's just. But how can you realize that? Well, you can't, because there is no you. So that's the paradox of the self-realization or liberation. There is no one to get liberated. There is no one to realize anything. There is no one to awaken. Awakening is from the costume, from the identification. But who awakens?
It's like the snake and the rope analogy, isn't it? It was never it was never what it seems to be, and it's just seeing the false, seeing the false of the ego, and how it comes about purely from the mind, the mechanism of mind, which creates thoughts, and that's all it is. So, the rope, it's just was non-existent. But even the feeling of a me, I remember in the past I used to grapple with that, but I feel like a me, it's so particular, so unique. But that's all it is. It's just a uniqueness expressing.
Feeling, yeah.
It's not a particular entity somewhere in space floating around. Yeah. It's just a pure, that incredible expression. Yeah. And when you start to unravel it, it's really quite an amazing thing, And you see how the problems come about from that sense of separation, me against you and all the rest of it, on and on and on and on. So, and to see the actuality, that false identity was just something conditioned and taken on board by a society, and the whole way the thinking mechanism is supported in our society and never questioned. And then to have that unravelled through the mind through the logic of the mind, because I was into meditation a lot too, and thinking that that was the steps to take because that was sacrosanct and spiritual. But actually, coming here totally reversed all those spiritual concepts, had to throw all that out the window. My precious meditation, you know, precious meditation had to be tossed out. And somehow the unravelling through initially the mind and understanding how it worked, that knowingness or whatever it is, that wonderful life, just does, it's always doing it anyway. That's the amazing thing. It's not how to do it, but kind of it just is done in a way. Yeah, because there's any method or mechanism is, even in a very subtle way, from the mind. And that's a wonderful thing. You know, this is what's actually going on and what's actually happening. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Gav.
Really, thank you for that.
Just want to say one thing, and that is that there really is no mind. I'm given to
that's
say
true.
that. There's no mind at all.
That's the point.
Mind does not exist, except beyond a collection of thoughts, that's all. There's no entity called mind, is there?
There's a nice description, very brief, I won't need the microphone, of rather than seeking an enlightened mind, enlightenment from mind. So because there isn't a mind to get enlightened. Yeah, that was all. It was brief.
I was, when you were talking about actors and the play, and you were mentioning Shakespeare, I think, the Shakespeare play of Caesar, Julius Caesar, and I don't know, it's a song, all the world it is a stage and thou art the joyful player. Shakespeare said that. So how come he knew that? You know, how come he had that perception? I sort of remember it goes like, all the world it is a stage and thou art the joyful player. All the world it is a stage, thou art the joyful player. Fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. That's like a little round, you know. Lovely. Yeah. It does make you feel less stressed about life because, after all, you're the joyful player.
Yes.
Makes you burst into song.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is consciousness? What is this consciousness? Make an investigation.
Speak up, go.
What is the consciousness? Investigate. There's an activity of knowing, as you point out in your first book. And it's an activity of knowing. It's not the known. It's not what you know. It's not the past. It's the immediacy. It's something happening right now. Activity of knowing or cognition. It's not what will be known or what's imagined or anticipated as knowledge. So it's knowing, it's not knowledge. Knowledge is the past, it's dead. The future is unknown, and there's no point in sort of wondering about it, but come back to the immediacy of this living moment and the activity of knowing. It's spontaneous. I'm not doing it. It's God-given, if you want, or by the grace. People talk about grace. It's this activity of knowing. And if I really just give it that attention, if you like, the mind quietens down with all its stories and words and things. And it's you know, you can't actually describe it. And you can't deny it. You can't get rid of it. It's the base. It's the base of existence. It's existence itself, if you want. And you know, there's a saying: consciousness is all there is. And as Bob just said a few moments ago, you know, that consciousness is utterly awake. And it's perfect in everyone. Everyone you meet or come across, people you don't come across, You know, that consciousness that's seemingly with them is perfect. And same here, it's perfect. It's not mine, it's not theirs, it's one consciousness, which is not affected by time or space. Time and space are things that appear as content of consciousness. So the consciousness itself is a mystery for the mind. Everything's a mystery for the mind, really.
Yes.
It's just playing with dice and cards and...
What is the mind?
Yeah, there is no mind unless you... Mind is an activity, but what is not an activity? It's an activity of knowing. And recognising that this activity of knowing is everything that is being experienced in the uninterrupted experiencing. Then the mind seemingly divides it into my experience, your experience, my understanding is better than yours, or my point is blah, blah, blah. You know, it's all division of the consciousness, but it's never been divided. Consciousness has never been divided, ever. What could divide it? Because it's everything. But we love stories and mythology. I mean, imagine what it would have been like for these cave people or whatever that supposedly existed back in his. You know, they had to have a mythology, a story, to ease the suffering of seeming separation, if they had such ideas of separation.
Maybe the story too is just
It's
to play as well.
Yeah, of course. The
Well,
content.
I mean, as Ross was saying with his breakdown of words, originally, you know, truth was in the words because that's where it came from. And you see the root meanings of words are full of truth.
Yeah. The content of consciousness is not separate from the consciousness.
Yeah.
This is really profound. You know, there's consciousness, then there's the content of consciousness, which is the expression of everything appearing as something separate. It's not separate, so it is the energy appearing, and like this is really profound. Everything is one.
Yeah.
You know, it and it doesn't matter what you think or whatever, because really there's no individual that thinks. And as Bob pointed out to me once, he said, try and think a single thought. Try it. You can't do it. We've got this idea, we know what thoughts are, but as in Bob's first book it says, it's just a subtle vibration. And how can you punish yourself with words, you know, I'm no good, I'll never amount to anything. You know, these are just words that the person seemingly limits themselves and beats themselves up. Psychological suffering, not necessary.
Maybe when meditation teachers teach meditation, they just should say, try to think. Just the whole time. You know, like, when you get taught meditation, you say, okay, now it's about no thoughts and stopping the thoughts. And you just say, try to think. Come on, try to think. Maybe we'll get somewhere. Have you ever thought of opening your own meditation school, Bob?
Why not you?
I wanted to ask you a question, Bob. This thing called the two truths, the relative truth and the absolute truth, because obviously we live in the world. We have to talk to people, we talk to our families, we work in the world, and, you know, how do these two truths sort of work as a human experiencing life?
There is no world.
There's no doesn't.
And it happens.
Well, there's seemingly two truths. And there's seemingly words, there's duality, there's seemingly all appears to be so. But it's never anything other than the one essence that expresses it in both ways. And if it didn't express duality, how could we discriminate one thing from another? So it's seemingly so. But know the truth about the two truths.
They don't lie.
No, it's a beautiful point. Yes, what Gilbert was saying, the content of consciousness and the consciousness are one. There really is no duality in non-duality. It is really just one. And on that token, Gilbert put together years back a book which he put a title, One Essence, expressing as everything, appearing and expressing as everything. And that book is available now on Amazon. If anyone wants the Kindle version, it's very cheap. We don't really get much of the royalties for it because it's $1 or so. But it is here on the table too. It's a nice. It's a really good book. And it really points out the pointer, one essence, experiencing and expressing as everything. That will tell you that even imagined ego is the transformation of that one essence, or one field, or no void, like Tony says, as a one potentiality, which suddenly transforms, vibrates into a form of a urge. Who am I? What am I? Seeking urge, or the desire for money or fame or name or whatever. All those urges are just the same transformation of that one essence. No different to trees and galaxies and stars and cells and thoughts and feelings. They're all just the way it plays out. And if you see it this way, now the seeing is happening, and within the seeing, the urge to identify, or the desire, or the seeking pattern, and you see it all as patterns. So now, even if, when Michael was saying, oh yeah, I'm convinced, the I that is convinced, that's also just another pattern arising, made of just the same one essence, expressing, experiencing, appearing as that pattern of individual or self. And if that is recognized, who is the recognizing agency? And I have a couple of things that I'm going to include from people who are with us online. Giotti says, so good to see Bob looking so vibrant. Agreed. And Tanya says, you can't experience being, presence, but there is seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking. So it's just this pure experiencing. Thoughts about trying to understand non-separation, maybe just relax as being. Without the questions, there is peace and enjoying. Beautiful, yeah. And JB says, great spiel, Bob, good to see you back in the saddle again. And Adrian, the experience here on this journey is that all the me-based suffering has continued to come up. The mud has to come to the surface and has been necessary pointers until this is seen through by the greater expanse and collapse, and the real reveals itself more. That's beautifully said. And Bradley says, no thought, no body. The brain animates the body, both appearances. To state trauma exists in the body would be to say it has an entity of its own. And life lives on life, says Dale Allison. And Bradley, trees don't shed bark. There is no action of shedding. It is natural flow. There is no act of letting go. With pure seeing, the bark falls off. And Amit, that's why it feels calling my awareness as I feels separate, as the letter I inherently points to an individual. So to me, this or is feels more relevant when referring to this awareness. Yeah, whatever helps. And Bradley, Caesar and Brutus both appear in the same stage lights. Persona never wakes up. Awake wakes up to the persona. Yep, that's the person doesn't non-spiritual. Spirit nemesis personal. Is there no Gilbert? Where did the last week's cake go?
Yeah,
And
no comment.
Vivek says, is consciousness, time and space lose any significance? As consciousness is permanent, but time, space changes. Nicely said, consciousness is the activity of knowing. That's that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they weren't questions, but it's a good sharing. If anyone would like to expand on it or add to it or elaborate or...
I was thinking of the word Leela.
Yeah.
Leela is described. Can anyone talk about Leela and like what it is?
Yeah, just what you were singing.
Leela is the play. Play of consciousness.
Mm.
It's a play. It's a comedy or a tragedy. The whole world's a play. And we are just...
joyful players.
Players.
Yeah. The divine sport.
Is Arab on the stage?
Yeah. Strutting and fretting his owl on the stage.
Signifying nothing.
Yeah, Bob was saying, what did you say? Sport?
Divine sport.
Divine sport, he says. Leela, divine sport.
Yeah, I just want to say, Kat mentioned the books on the table, and there's CDs there as well. I can't. Is it?
Yes.
What's the name of the CD series? Is it like Reflecting on Emptiness or?
I think
something like that.
Let me see. Talking with no thing or something.
Because
dialogues on conversation on no thing.
Conversation on no thing. Because like probably about like I don't know, 8 months ago I was here and Kat gave me about 8 months. I love those too, Bob. Thank you. I listen to them all the time. They're in the car, and I've listened to them many times over. So thank you. But about 8 months ago, Kat said, "Oh, do you want one of these?" And I said, "Oh, I've got one." He said, "We got any friends? Give it to a friend."
Yeah.
So I took it along to a friend, and I saw him last night. And apparently, he took it, opened it up, took the plastic off. There was nothing in there. He goes, "Oh, is that the message? Was it meant to be like that?"
Like that. No. A lot of people got some. They loved it.
Conversations on no tea, on no CD.
Yeah, no conversations on no CDs.
I'll say something.
Much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
So like everyone's talking, like we're talking about, like seeing that all there is consciousness, right? Like that, that it's one thing, one appearing, patterning, shaping, forming as infinity, as infinite things, or made of nothing. But like it's like all this is pointing is like to try to point you to see that, to live that. And I remember when, Bob would say something and I'd go away, and then I'd come back a week later and I had all these experiences. But then I met this person, and then I lost that place. And Bob would say, "Don't let anyone knock you off your perch." He goes, "Once you see it, don't see it." But I think like this seeing, getting to know, like with absolute just clarity or not conviction, but all of these things is it grows, like. And so all the teachings, like simply start with the fact that you're already that. That's it. Or follow the I amness, or stay with the I amness, or who am I, or all these different teachings. I think what they might do is Kat describes something like there's an urge, the urge to play the character, I've never heard it described that way. It was pretty good. But that urge, it starts to lose that urge because starting with the fact that you're already that actually starts to destroy that urge, and it continues more and more.
Sort of melts it.
And then the more that urge comes up, the more it's destroyed by thatness takes. And then you start to actually see and feel and know with absolute certainty that all there is that. There's no dead trees and live trees and learning to see the dead trees, and no, there's just that appearing as, maybe you call it dead or alive, but there's really no distinction. And
the appearance is not how it is, it's only how it seems to be.
Yes, and even that, like, and the more you go in, the more that happens, that becomes even empty. Like beautifully empty though, like light, like flashes of stardust, bullshit, whatever. Anyway, that's so. And I don't know. I think that's about it for now.
That's beautiful. That's exactly it. Not only things become empty, but even an urge to know anything goes away.
Yeah.
And the urge to define anything or to take any positions, that one eases off. Not only the urge to identify, but also urge to, I know, I understand, I get it, or even urge to teach anyone anything, convince anyone of anything. All those urges are transparent. They become like just the patterns and like translucent, like meaningless. And at the same time, really beautiful, really just like a piece of art. But you don't know anything. You don't know what it is, why it is, what it means. All of those urges to know and to find comfort in any sort of defining gives away to just being amazed at the miracle of the existence of that arising. And whatever happens, it comes to the point, then naturally, whatever happens to the body is just part of it. When the body happens to need a surgery, or maybe even not emerge out of it, it's like, this is a part of it. That body is no different to anything else that arises. So naturally, it kills any idea of fear of dying. It doesn't kill survival instinct, because that's just a part of the makeup of the body. It might in some cases, I don't know. Doesn't matter either way. But yes, that's as you were saying, it becomes really kind of transparent. It becomes full of light. It becomes like a colored stardust. Nothing is that important anymore. Nothing's that serious anymore, and it's just like mind blowing. So, but you first it seems like there is someone who first notices all the activity of knowing, all the urges, all the need to identify, need to figure it out, need to understand. It feels like there is someone who wants to know, who wants to investigate, but then even that someone just collapses, relaxes into the nothing. There isn't one. It's just the still vague urge to take credit that is part of the conditioning of the mind. The recognizing, the seeing, the hearing, it happens totally impersonally, and the little conditioned urge to, no, this is me seeing, this is me getting to know it, this is me waking up, this is me understanding. That urge, if that one is seen, it also starts relaxing, because certain processes, as I learned as a teenager from Gurdjieff, can only progress in the darkness. The moment you bring light into it, the chemical reactions cannot continue. And that credit-taking activity, that activity of identifying, those are all completely conditioned, mechanical reactions. They're not very conscious. Everything is part of the consciousness, but they really on autopilot. The moment light is brought into them, that amount of attention which shines the light on that mechanical process is the same amount of attention withdrawn from it. So it is slowly dissolving. It can't solidify. It can't be believable as much. So, but again, it's not always that relaxation available. Sometimes there is a need to absolute focus. Like you look at the animals, they run for their lives. There is no relaxed attention, marveling at the miracle of existence there. No, it's just whatever. If attention is needed to be laser focused or engaged or busy with anything, there may not be a possibility to actually notice the happening in a way of just a witnessing presence, to see it in a way that is not kind of divided or taken positions. But at the same time, when full identification with the emotion happens, there is no problem either, because there is no division either. There is no separation either. If I'm completely taken by my whatever, depression, sadness, joy, whatever it is, I am that. I am the depression, sadness, joy. The identity came into that urge, into that energy. And there is no division. There is no me who needs to stop being that. There is just that storm going through. When the storm kind of eases off and the relaxation happens, well, there is an opportunity to look, but only in hindsight. In hindsight, I can say, oh, I was kidnapped by the thought, by the story. But who was kidnapped? That hindsight and the story of me comes only when there is an availability to narrate what was happening. Because in the midst of action, there is no narrative. And if there is no narrative, there is no separate self, and there is no problem. So just see how that whole thing functions. Just be curious about it. Be amazed how it functions. Whatever you are able to notice at the time is already magnificent. It's just whatever is meant to be noticed. There is nothing ever wrong, or there is nothing ever too little or too much. There is nothing that you are not getting. There's nothing that you are not following, that you're not good enough and you just kind of need to try more and watch more and read more books. No, it's all pure perfection unfolding as it should. Whatever is witnessed, and that's amazing. Whatever isn't, well, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong. And we have last 7 or 10 minutes. Let me see if anyone wants to contribute. Yeah.
So I don't really want to give anyone any exercises.
Let's speak one at a time, okay? Because that will be very... Bob can't be right there.
I don't want to really give anyone any exercises to do because there isn't anything for anyone to do. But something that I want to share with everyone is just a beautiful experience that I'm sure we've all had with someone at some point. And it's just looking, you could say, call it a person, looking at that person in their eyes. And it's funny because people call it, the gateway to the soul or whatever, But if you look at that person in their eyes and you really relax, and it might be someone that you've just met and you get concepts that pop up and, that come up and might create a little bit of friction in the mind. But if you just surrender to that experience and you relax into that experience, the recognition of your true self is extremely obvious, and it's quite a beautiful experience to recognize that. And then after that, obviously, you take the training wheels off and and you ride looking at a wall. But, yeah. So I just want to share that.
That's brilliant. That's it. Yeah.
Hearing all this, I say there is no I, but still I say, why I feel like still somebody there? That is my question.
Yeah.
She says, why does she feel like there is still somebody there? And isn't it just the urge? That's the feeling that is arising in the consciousness, right? The feeling that, there is somebody there. That's the feeling. Sometimes that feeling is very strong. Sometimes that feeling is almost non-existent. So, yes, there is a feeling. But what does it have to do with you?
Yes.
With the identity? You, the consciousness.
Is it anything other than you, the feeling? Is it somebody else feeling?
It's you, isn't it?
No. Claim it.
You, the consciousness, and the feeling arises. Like the feeling somebody there, or is the feeling, I'm not good enough, or is the feeling, I'm great, or is the feeling, it's just that. Any feeling that arises is a cloud on the sky. You are the consciousness. You are the I am, the pure presence in which the feeling, but I am small, or I am the Julius Caesar, or I am Brutus, or I am Manju. Any feeling that arises there, feeling and thought and image or words, they're not always there, and you are always there.
Yes. even I say I feel like person, but again I ask myself, who is this I feeling like person?
Yeah.
That is not existed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like asking question, and again I say, who is that person asking as feeling like a person? There is none.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. keep
Beautiful.
going. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's only the images of self that are not their capability to to put together an image in your mind, but the images themselves that seem to be the clouds, isn't it? What would you think?
Gilbert.
Even the imposter syndrome, we have terminologies, modern terminologies, the imposter syndrome. People have a sense that they're an imposter and they got a job but they don't really qualify, blah, blah. That's still consciousness. It's still consciousness expressing itself. There's no one there that's separate or guilty of something or whatever. Displays itself in all its miraculous ways.
How do you know there's questioning going on? Yeah. How do you know there's questioning going on?
He's saying, like, when you ask the question, how do you know that is happening? What is it that knows?
Must be the intelligence energy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how come? Nothing
Yeah,
is there.
yeah.
Yeah, that is the reason I say I'll ask question, but who is asking? Who feel like a person? There is no point asking.
But it's just our conditioning,
and
isn't it?
Kat explained so nicely about the urge comes and urge also eat.
I remember years ago, somebody was telling me about their past lives, and I was a handmaiden to the pharaoh, blah blah blah. Nobody ever says I was the guy that took the shit out and buried it in the back. There's nobody ever says I was the guy who cleaned the shit house, for the pharaoh.
Yeah. I have the... did you want to add something? No? I have the comment from Vivek who says, so the game Matrix is revealed. No more entering the Matrix. And if entering happens, it's just what happens. It's just the screen. And Giotti says, can I please be Cleopatra cat? Not a fan. Not a fan of Caesar. Well, yeah, the good news is you can be whatever you want, and you already are everything, the totality. You can put whatever the costume, you can put whatever the role, and it changes all the time anyway. And none of that role is your exclusive identity. It's just a costume. And you are the totality behind the costume, wearing the costume, pretending, expressing, experiencing, and appearing as the particular role. How great. I mean, everyone plays roles, You can be a wife and a mother and a daughter and a friend and this. And every single role seemingly has different identity. Which one is real? And everyone calls itself I. This is I, me. This is the Polish or the Australian or the woman or the man. They just, you can so easily see through the whole game. Oh, I'm the fixer. Oh, I'm the controller. Oh, I'm the one who seeks the truth. I want to find the truth. I'm the spiritual. Amazing. Oh, yeah, be a Cleopatra, be a king, be a queen, be whatever you want. But the truth is, they're just temporary costumes. They're just the joyous, what you were saying, joyous dance,
Joyous player.
Player,
As in the actor, joyous.
Joyous player, joyous acting. And that's it for the online contribution, and thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
everyone. Thank you very much, Bob.
Love you all.
Love you too.
Love you all.